Eric and Eric here, Moski Homebrew, and today we're going to tell you about 5 things that's going to make your brew day go a lot easier. So today we're going to tell you about 5 things that make our brew days go a lot easier, or just make our home brewing go a lot easier.
Basically 5 items that we really like and enjoy using since we've actually started brewing. We'll leave the links in the description below to each of the products that we're talking about today, and then we're also going to include 2 bonus items, so make sure to check those out as well. Spray sanitizer bottle.
So a spray bottle?
Yeah, like a spray bottle for your sanitizer. So
yeah,
when I brew, or I should say when we first started brewing, we would have a 5-gallon bucket of sanitizer, and we would literally sanitize everything. And as we have learned along the way, we realize you don't have to sanitize absolutely everything. But instead of having a bucket now full of sanitizer, wasting all that sanitizer and water, I save money by only putting it in a spray bottle and spraying down basically my fermenter.
Yep.
Making sure it's clean before I do it, rinse it out, spray it down with sanitizer. Now, the thing you gotta watch out for is you can't do it with carboys, because the neck's too small. That's when you actually have to do a whole batch of sanitizer.
Yeah.
But if you have a bucket or a conical, something with where the top opens up, and you can just spray it down, let it sit, sanitized.
If you can get the spray bottle in there, you're good to go.
Yep, exactly.
So number 2 is going to be a hop spider. Hop spider can use for a couple things. We use it when we warloff. I guess once you're done your mash, you're warloffing and you think your wort is clear enough, you start putting it in your kettle. We actually put the line in the hop spider. That just helps filter out some more of those grains that maybe you just can't see, or maybe you thought you had a good enough warloff and really you didn't. But it will save you in the long run. And then obviously for putting hops in there in your boil, it helps with filtering those out so you don't get as much into your fermenter at the end. So it is kind of nice, and it kind of saves you a little bit of time at the end. You don't really have to whirlpool as hard. I mean, you still can, but
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Well, you can whirlpool to get all the hops together in one area, so that you.
Oh, you're saying the hop spider for the hops.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, you don't have as much.
A better. Yeah, you don't get as much in there. So there are a couple benefits to it, and they're pretty cheap. So it's definitely something to pick up and use if you aren't using one already.
The other thing that I always run into as far as vorloffing is I will open it up, vorloff into a container, and see that it's crystal clear, nothing in it, and then I'll shut it off, go put my line in there, and then open it back up to a different degree, and I get a bunch of shit in my kettle at that point, and it's like, you can't really do much other than like retransfer, and that's just a mess. Usually we just continue brew day, but anyways, that is number 2.
So number 3 is going to be clamps. Basically, we have 3 little red clamps we use. Not those kind of clamps.
Oh, sorry.
We have like 3 clamps we usually use. If you're brewing by yourself, they are pretty handy. It's easy to use, just to like clamp a hose to something, whether it be inside your fermenter, inside your kettle. Just so when you're actually transferring liquid to another vessel, the hose doesn't go all over the place. Or you have doing like a brew in a bag setup, and you want to pin the bag down so it doesn't move. That's also another good use for little clamps. But I mean, it all depends on your setup. But at the same time, it's always nice to have something that is easy to use, that you can almost like an extra hand.
Yeah.
So
I use them when
they're useful.
I use them when I brew in a bag on a small setup, and it's great because in a brew in a bag, it's real hard to stir, and I mean, obviously you're dealing with the bag, so the clamps hold the bag down, and just being able to stir it makes it so much easier.
When you're doing by yourself, it's kind of hard to get all that to stay situated.
Yeah, I mean, a clamp kind of acts like half a person, or like a one hand.
Yep.
Like
extra hand.
Like my assistant today is half of one person. going into a lot of detail on this. Very persistent.
Basically, pick up a couple clamps. They're pretty cheap. You'll find a use for them eventually.
Yep. So if you're currently using the typical capper where you have the two handles on top and you're clamping down on the top of the bottle, we had upgraded to, while we were still doing bottling, upgraded to a single-handed, I don't know what you would call it, almost like adjustable bottle capper, and that made it, that helped us twofold because it was faster to do it, and it was, you were able to actually put a hand on the bottle and hold it, and then also use the other hand. It only took one hand to actually crimp the cap on there. So
I think it's a lot more efficient and
Yes.
easier to use than the two-handed. I mean, the two-handed is pretty easy. You do have to put a lot more force onto the two-handed operator, or that one. This one's a little bit more, I don't know how to say it, but it's not, you don't have to put as much effort into it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
a smoother action, rather than, I mean, I've never liked putting my weight onto top of a bottle and pushing down on it,
Yeah.
a glass bottle.
I think it's a lot quicker. Basically, you can already have your cap set up there.
There's a magnet, right?
Yeah, there's a magnet in it. You bottle it, you move it over with the other hand, and you cap it with the other. I mean, it's pretty, because you want to minimize oxygen in the first place. So as soon as that beer hits the bottle and you put a blanket of CO2 on top, if you're using like a bottling wand or something, that's probably your best bet, is to have something like that. I know a couple times we've used the two-hand setup and I ended up breaking the neck of the bottle, or at least the top of the bottle.
Yeah,
I've broken that off before.
We were having issues with, because the way it works is it kind of goes around the bottle and then you push down and it kind of grabs the bottle and pushes the cap down at the same time, and we were actually getting glass shards
off of some of the
bottles.
You know, that could be our capper too. I mean, like,
Probably
you know,
was.
the capper we used to use was all at least where you attach the bottle cap and then it would go around the bottle, was all metal. Some of them are plastic too.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, you could have a plastic one, you know, like it just fine, but I know those still require two hands in the first place.
Yep.
So something to think about if you're still bottling or occasionally bottle. That bottler we have is actually really nice.
So like we mentioned at the beginning of the video, all the links in the description below. Make sure to check them out. Check out the 2 bonus ones we have down there. If you guys have any questions, comments, make sure to like this video. If you liked it, subscribe, hit the bell for the notification on the next one. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.
Cheers. But guys, that's only 4 things. Your title says 5. Yeah, well, because you know what happens is you start drinking and you start forgetting things. So number 5 to the list are these wonderful half-gallon and 1-gallon measuring cups. Love using these for any extra liquid. I used it for making cider, pouring this in here. Has a nice spout so you can pour it into your carboy easily. One of the reasons we did pick one of these up is every time we do a brew recipe and we need 0.3 or 0.5 or 0.25, all these strange increments other than a gallon of water. And if you've been following us recently, we've been buying our gallons of water from the local grocery store, Kroger actually. We get their spring water because we have a report, and we've been screwing around with our salt contents in each of the beers that we do and just seeing how they affect it. So when we come across a brew day and our spreadsheet says 4.3 gallons, we now know exactly how much we need, because we've even noticed that the gallons that we get from the grocery store are not exactly a gallon to the T anyways. Eric recently just did a batch of beer where, I'll pop up the photo he sent me recently, where he poured out 6 gallons and he was actually almost a quarter gallon off additional, which has some potential to throw off your numbers in the end of the brew day, of course. If you're not aware that it's there, it could throw off your efficiency readings and your ABV in the long run too. So I like using them for moving around grain, anything that extra that I need to pour it in, small batches of sanitizer,
It's easy, it's got a nice pour on the top, so if you're using sanitizer, you can pour sanitizer in here from your bucket and then pour this into the carboy, because that's always a pain and it makes a huge mess. So just overall, these are great little things to have, and they're not very expensive, 5, 10, 15 bucks, between the 0 to 20 mark range. And yeah, it has helped us out a lot. That is our number 5 for items that have helped us through our brew days. We think it could help you a lot too. Cheers.